Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. Have you been tuning in every week for the story of Moses? We've done so many stories now, but it's not over. We're not finished. They're still not in the promised land that God promised them. They're still in Egypt. So the story is not over. What did we see last week? It was so exciting last week. What did we see? How many plagues? Tell me. 2, 3, 4, 5. We saw 5 plagues. I think I have them here. What was the first one? Water turned into blood. The second one, before I bring it out, what's the second one? Froggies. Frogs. Yeah, frogs. And the third one was a hard one. Gnats. Do you remember that word? Gnats, little bugs that bite. Sometimes they don't bite, but they're annoying and they're everywhere and there's thousands of them. Gnats. And what's the fourth one? Flies. Flies, yeah. And I found a craft. If you wanted to do a fly craft, you just need a stick, and I can produce one of these things, and you put some things around it, and that's a nice craft there. So flies. And the last one we saw last week? The livestock, all the animals, they also died. But did Pharaoh let the people go? Did Pharaoh let God's people go? No. So, how many did I say there were altogether? 10. Today we're going to look at 4 more. And then on the next week we're going to look at the last one, which is the worst one out of all of them. But today we're going to look at 4. So remember last week we started and I almost told you the 6th one. And we saw in his hand was some soot. Do you remember? At this time he's going back to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's like, no, your people aren't going to go anywhere. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your God does. No, no, no. And Moses, he gets his hand and he shows him some soot. And this is stuff that when you have a fire, you know, when there's a fire and there's ash left over and it's black, he shows him that stuff and he says, this is going to turn into boils. Now, what's boils? So we've got a picture here of boils. They're dots. You can see these dots there on the people's heads. There's something on the skin and they got water inside. They're very itchy and they just pop up all over your body. I don't know if you've ever had a rash. It's not really like a rash, but similar. And you get them everywhere and you've got to put medicine on them. And they're very itchy, as I said, and they're unpleasant. And all the people, all the Egyptians, not the Israelites, not God's people, but all the Egyptians got all these boils. Now these two guys were the magicians and the sorcerers. And Pharaoh was saying, hang on, can't you create or can't you get rid of them? And they're like, no, their God is way too powerful for us to create this type of thing. And everyone was getting these boils. And what did Pharaoh say, as he always does? No, you are not going anywhere. You and your people are staying here. What a surprise. What a surprise that Pharaoh says the same thing all the time. No, and he goes against God. Clueless. Why would you go against God? Anyway, next day, they go to Pharaoh. And what is going to be the next plague? Number 7. So we had 6 was the boils. 7 is what? Do you know what the 7th plague is? Can you guess? He sees Pharaoh, they go up to Pharaoh and they say, you better let us go or the next plague is going to be devastating. It's actually going to kill people, Egyptians. Not the Israelites, this is going to fall on the Egyptians. And Pharaoh said, I don't care what you do, your God's not that powerful. Fair enough. 7th plague, what is it? Hail! He prays, Moses and Aaron, they pray, God, 7th plague, and the biggest storm comes with lightning and rain, and then all of a sudden hail comes. And the hail is so big. You know what hail is? You know when it rains, sometimes that the water in the clouds is in big balls and it doesn't melt, and it comes down in big balls of ice. And it's bang! And they're so big, these balls, they can be like that big, and they can, if they hit you, you could die. And God sent hail. Now I was trying to find some hail and I couldn't, so I made some ice balls. All these ice, if you could see, I made a bowl of ice balls. I put them in plastic and I made them, and they're a little bit heavy. And I was thinking, imagine this came all the way down, bang, on the head. I wouldn't want to try it. That would hurt so much. But we'll give it a test. You know me, we've got to try something silly. So let's try something. All right, we've got all these. Do you want these to go up and all on my head? Yeah? Why do you want to see me get hurt? That's not funny, but we're going to do it anyway because it might be funny. But first, I have to protect myself, don't I? So, let's put my helmet on. All right. Okay. So now I'm protected. And it's going to rain hail. These are quite heavy. Ah! It's going to break the TV. Oh. All right. That's enough. All right, so these hail things, very heavy things, bang! And people were dying. Where did my clicker go? Wow, I lost my clicker. What happened to it? That's crazy. Did it knock it off the table? Oh, there it is. Sorry for that. I got lost with all these ice things everywhere. My clicker went missing. Whew. Oh, I'm confused now. What are we up to? What are we talking about? Are we talking about Jesus? Elijah? Abraham? Noah? No. Moses. Oh yeah, that's right. We're doing the Moses story. So what plague is this? 7. And it came down and killed so many people. And then, back to Pharaoh. And you know what Pharaoh said? Please, finally. He was like, please, your God, this is a bad one. This hail has killed so many people. Oh, okay, your God is great. Your God, finally, he's saying God is great. We will let the people go. We will do it. I'm sorry. Please call your God and tell him to stop this hail. So Moses and Aaron, they prayed. God, he finally has repented. He finally has said he believes in you. Please stop the hail. And God stopped it. The hail stopped falling. And then what did Pharaoh do? Oh, well, that's great. And then he said, I changed my mind. I'm not going to let you guys go. Can you believe it? He changed his mind again. Every time he says, all right, I'll let him go. And then they say, okay, God, please stop the plague. And then he changes his mind again. I don't think he understands God's not going to stop. Why would God just quit? So that was 7. What do you think 8 is? What's 8? Do you know? What's 8? Well, he said to Pharaoh, this next plague, honestly, Pharaoh, it's going to be bad. I'm telling you. Let God's people go. What does Pharaoh always do with his hand? Get out of here. I don't believe in your God. After he's seen so many plagues, he still doesn't believe. He's seen 7 plagues and still he's hardening in his heart. So the next plague is, did you know what it is? It is locusts. What are locusts? Locusts are like grasshoppers. They swarm, they're in packs like gnats, and there's thousands, millions of them actually. And what they do is they destroy harvests. They destroy plants. So if you think about this, think what God's doing. He took away their water. Then he took away their livestock so they can't eat meat. But what about the vegetarians who eat vegetables and fruit and plants? Now the locusts come and they destroy all of that. So God is taking away everything from the Egyptians, everything that they need to survive. because he's trying to teach Pharaoh that he's the real giver of things and he can take things away. And if they don't trust God, he's going to start taking away from Pharaoh and the Egyptians. He's going to keep taking and taking until finally. So when Pharaoh sees all these, oh wow, he's like, oh Moses, okay, I'll let you guys go. I'll let you go. Please stop. And Moses said, oh, finally, thank goodness. And what does he do? He tells them to go away. He tells them to go away and tells all these people, guess what, guys? Pharaoh has let us go. You know, Moses is saying, Pharaoh has let us go, everyone. We're all going to go now. And then Pharaoh says, who's going to go? And Moses is saying, all of us. And Pharaoh's like, hang on. I thought you and just a few of you were just going to go and worship God in the wilderness. You didn't tell me that all the million Israelites will go. And Moses said, of course, they're all God's people. What do you think Pharaoh did then? Get out of here. No. Not again. He's seen 8 plagues. And he's saying again, get out of here, Moses and Aaron. He's never learning. Doesn't learn from his mistakes. So there's going to be another one. What is the 9th plague? Moses. He says, that's it. This one is going to be pretty bad. There is going to be, do you know what it is? There is going to be darkness of all the land. Now you can see there, but actually it was completely blind. Everyone would have needed candles to walk around because it would have been completely black and completely dark, even in the daytime, even in the nighttime. The slaves couldn't work because it was dark. So Pharaoh's, oh, wow. So what does he do? We know the story because he does the same thing all the time. He's very predictable. He calls Moses in and he says to Moses, okay, I'll let your people go. Moses said, really? Well, that's exciting news. But you realise, Pharaoh, is what Moses is saying, you realise if you're going to let us go, you have to let all the people go. And Pharaoh said, yes. And he said, and you also have to give us all our animals. You know, the ones that didn't die because all Pharaoh's livestock died, but Moses, God's people, their animals didn't die. And Pharaoh was like, I didn't agree to that. And Moses said, no, that's what is required for these plagues to stop. All the people, all the animals, and all the treasures. And Pharaoh was quite angry. And he said, I never forget these words. He said, Moses, I better be Pharaoh for this because this is an angry moment. Moses, I never want to see you coming back here again. If you do, you will die. That's what he said. He was sick of Moses. He was sick of God. He was sick of the plagues. He was over it. He's not going to let the people go and all the animals. He's tired of it all. Even though he's seen all the plagues, he should be listening. Now he's just over it. He doesn't want to see Moses anymore. But Moses also looked at him very angrily. And he said, Pharaoh, you have seen 9 plagues. But the last one is going to be worse than you could ever imagine. Let my people go before this last plague comes along. And Pharaoh refused. Next week, we're going to see the last plague. We're just going to be concentrating on one plague next week and the ramifications, the consequences, what's going to happen from that plague. And it's going to be devastating for the Egyptians, but it's going to be fantastic for God's people who are going to be rescued by God. We know that, but we're going to see what God does and how serious God is when you disobey him. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson today. And we see the stubbornness of Pharaoh, we see the goodness of God, we see the power of God, we see the obedience of Moses and Aaron, but we also see God's power in a promise when he says, I'm going to bring you out of slavery into the Canaan, into the promised land, and God will do it. When God sent his only son Jesus to die for us, he did it. When he said, I'm going to send my son to save you from your sin, he did it. When Jesus says, I'm going to prepare a place for you in heaven that one day you're going to be with me, that's going to happen. Because God's promise always comes true. When Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me, we have to believe in Jesus' promise, not like Pharaoh to ignore it. When God says, when Jesus says himself, trust in me, we trust in Jesus. We don't say, no, I'm not going to trust in you, Jesus. We need to listen to God. Don't be like Pharaoh and always be hard-hearted and you just don't want to listen. You want to be an obedient child, an obedient adult. We want to be obedient. We want to listen to God because we know it's good for us to listen to God. He's the creator of every single one of us. He made us. He gives us the rules. If he tells you to do something and asks you, it's good for you, not bad, because he loves us very, very much. So I hope you enjoyed the story, but come back next week because we've only done 9 plagues. We've got one more plague to go. And then after that, we're going to see them going into the promised land, and some things happen there as well. But eventually they get there and there's rejoicing. And we want to see Moses and the Israelites out of Egypt, don't we? We want to see them in that beautiful land. So join me next week. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you next week.